4 minutes and 7 seconds. That is how long it took for Senator John Kennedy to ask one question about a $2 billion payment. Watch Attorney General Pam Bondi try 5 different ways to avoid answering it, and finally force her to announce a DOJ investigation into her own financial dealings while sitting under oath in front of Senate cameras. Not a rumor, not an allegation. A documented $2 billion transfer with Epstein's name attached to it that Bondi never disclosed to Congress, never reported to ethics officials, and clearly hoped nobody would ever discover. Watch what happens when Kennedy pulls out the transfer authorization. Watch Bondi's face when she realizes he has the full paper trail. Watch her try to claim she doesn't know what he's talking about, and watch Kennedy calmly read the account numbers, dates, and recipient information that prove she's lying. And watch 4 minutes and 7 seconds of the nation's top law enforcement officer get cornered by a senator with documents she thought were sealed and questions she never prepared to answer. You need to see this from the beginning, because what happened in that hearing room is not just about money. It is about leverage, a massive, undisclosed, unexplained $2 billion payment that connects the Attorney General directly to Jeffrey Epstein's financial network and raises the question nobody wants to ask: what did she do to earn it? If you are new here, subscribe right now, because what you are about to see is the most damaging testimony Pam Bondi has ever given, and it's being buried by every network that doesn't want you asking who else received Epstein money and what they did in return. Let me set the scene for you. Senate Judiciary Committee, Hart Building Room 216, the same room where Supreme Court justices get confirmed and cabinet officials get destroyed. Wednesday afternoon, the hearing was listed as routine oversight of DOJ budget priorities. Routine. By the time Kennedy finished questioning Bondi, that word would be banned from any description of her financial history. Bondi arrived at 2 p.m. with her standard team of 4 DOJ attorneys seated behind her and a leather portfolio she set on the witness table without opening. She wore a gray suit and pearl earrings, and that expression of controlled confidence she uses when she thinks every question has been pre-negotiated with committee staff. Kennedy arrived at 2:03 p.m., carrying his worn briefcase and a yellow legal pad covered in handwritten notes. He sat in his usual position, 3 seats from the chairman, and did not ask a single question for the first 38 minutes of testimony. He just watched Bondi answer other senators' questions about case backlogs and staffing levels with polished non-answers that revealed nothing. Then his turn came. The chairman recognized him. Kennedy thanked the chairman in his slow Louisiana drawl that makes every word feel like the calm before a hurricane. "General Bondi, I appreciate you being here today." Bondi nodded. "Thank you, Senator. I want to ask you about something that came across my desk last week, something that frankly puzzled me." He opened his briefcase. "Do you maintain any financial accounts that are not disclosed on your standard ethics filings?" Bondi's expression didn't change, but one of her attorneys leaned forward slightly. "Senator, I disclose all required financial information according to federal ethics guidelines." "That's not what I asked. I asked if you maintain accounts that are not on your disclosure forms." "All accounts that are required to be disclosed are disclosed." Kennedy pulled a document from his briefcase. "That's interesting, because I'm looking at a wire transfer record from an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account is registered under a trust called the Epstein Memorial Fund. Are you familiar with that trust?" The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Every camera focused tighter on Bondi. Journalists stopped typing and just stared. Bondi's voice stayed level, but her hands went still. "I am not familiar with that specific entity." Kennedy looked at her over his reading glasses. "You're not familiar with a trust that made a $2 billion transfer to an account with your name on it?" Bondi's attorneys both sat up straight. "Senator, I would need to see documentation before I can comment on any alleged transfers." "I have documentation." Kennedy held up the paper. "This is a wire transfer authorization dated November 2023. Sender: Epstein Memorial Fund, account number ending in 4782, Cayman Islands. Recipient, P. Bondi Trust, account number ending in 9341, Delaware. Amount, $2 billion. Transfer cleared on November 17, 2023. Do you deny this transfer occurred? Bondi looked at her attorneys. They whispered for 5 seconds. She turned back to Kennedy. Senator, I maintain various financial instruments for estate planning purposes. I cannot confirm or deny specific transactions without reviewing complete documentation. I'm not asking about various instruments. I'm asking about $2 billion from a fund with Epstein's name. Did you receive it? I would need to consult my financial records. You don't remember receiving $2 billion? I received various asset transfers as part of normal financial management. Normal financial management includes receiving $2 billion from an entity named after Jeffrey Epstein? Bondi's jaw tightened. Senator, I cannot speak to the origins of funds without proper documentation and legal review. If you've made it this far, subscribe now, because what comes next is Kennedy systematically destroying every deflection Bondi attempts. Kennedy pulled another document. Let me help you with that legal review. This is the trust registration for the Epstein Memorial Fund. It was established in September 2019, 1 month after Epstein's death. The trust's stated purpose is continuation of philanthropic activities initiated by the late Jeffrey Epstein. The trust has 3 trustees. 2 names are redacted. The 3rd name is yours. Bondi's face went pale. That is not possible. It's documented in Cayman Islands Trust Registry. Public record if you know where to look. I am not a trustee of any Epstein-related entity. Then someone forged your name on legal documents filed in a foreign jurisdiction? Or the documents are fraudulent. The documents are authenticated by the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. Are you saying they authenticated fraudulent records? Bondi didn't answer. Kennedy continued. Let me read you the trust description. Quote, this trust shall manage and distribute funds derived from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein for purposes consistent with his lifetime charitable interests. What were Epstein's charitable interests, General Bondi? I have no knowledge of Epstein's charitable activities. But you're listed as a trustee of his memorial fund. I dispute that listing. On what basis? On the basis that I never agreed to serve as trustee of anything related to Jeffrey Epstein. Kennedy set the document down. Then explain the $2 billion transfer. I cannot explain something I have no knowledge of. You have no knowledge of $2 billion entering an account with your name on it? Not without reviewing my complete financial records. Drop a comment right now if you think Bondi knew this was coming, because her entire legal team looks like they're hearing this for the first time. Kennedy pulled a 3rd document. Then let's review together. This is a bank statement from Delaware Trust Company. Account holder, P. Bondi Trust. Statement period, November 2023. Opening balance, $247,000. November 17th wire transfer, $2 billion. Closing balance, $2,024,700. He looked up. Does that help your memory? Bondi's voice was shaking slightly. Senator, I am not going to discuss my private financial accounts in a public hearing. These aren't private accounts. This is a Delaware trust, which means it's subject to public beneficial ownership reporting. You're listed as the sole beneficiary. My financial disclosures include all required trust information. They include a Delaware trust with $247,000. They do not include a Delaware trust with $2 billion. Because that amount, if it exists, must have been transferred after my last disclosure filing. Your last filing was March 2025. This transfer was November 2023. You've filed twice since this money arrived and never disclosed it. Bondi looked at the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I request that this line of questioning be conducted in closed session to protect sensitive financial information. The chairman looked at Kennedy. Kennedy spoke before the chairman could respond. General Bondi just confirmed the transfer exists. She's not denying it. She's asking us to discuss it in private. Why would we do that? A senator from California jumped in. General Bondi, are you confirming that you received $2 billion from an Epstein-linked fund? Bondi's voice was barely audible. I am confirming that I need to review my records before answering questions about complex financial transactions. Kennedy leaned forward. It's not complex. Money went from Epstein fund to your account. What was it for? I don't know. You don't know why someone gave you $2 billion? I don't know that I received $2 billion. I just showed you the bank statement. I haven't verified that statement. It's from your bank. I haven't personally verified it. Kennedy sat back. General Bondi, let me ask you a different question. If you did receive $2 billion from an Epstein-linked fund, would that be legal? Bondi looked at her attorneys. They whispered urgently. She turned back. That would depend on the circumstances of the transfer. What circumstances would make it legal? If the funds were legitimate proceeds from a properly established trust with no connection to criminal activity. And if the funds were proceeds from Epstein's criminal enterprise, then accepting them would be illegal. So you're sitting here telling this committee that you either illegally accepted $2 billion in criminal proceeds or you legally accepted $2 billion from a trust you claim to know nothing about despite being listed as a trustee and beneficiary. Which is it? Subscribe now, because what happens in the next 90 seconds is Bondi making the worst decision of her career. Bondi stood up, not aggressively, just stood. Senator Kennedy, I want to be very clear. I have devoted my career to upholding the law. I have never knowingly accepted funds from any illegal source. If there are questions about financial transactions involving my accounts, I will personally direct the DOJ Inspector General to conduct a full investigation. Kennedy didn't move. You're going to investigate yourself? I'm going to direct an independent investigation within DOJ. Independent? You're the Attorney General. There's no one in DOJ independent of you. The Inspector General operates independently. The Inspector General reports to you. Bondi sat back down. Then I will request an investigation by an outside agency. Which agency? I will determine that in consultation with ethics officials. When? Immediately. Define immediately. I will initiate the process this week. Kennedy made a note. General Bondi, you're announcing under oath that you're launching an investigation into a $2 billion transfer that you claim you don't know about, from a fund you claim you're not involved with, to an account you claim you didn't know had $2 billion in it. Bondi nodded. That is correct. And you think that makes this better? Bondi didn't answer. A senator from Texas leaned into her microphone. General Bondi, if you're truly unaware of this transfer, doesn't that mean someone has access to your financial accounts without your knowledge? Bondi turned toward the senator. That would be a concerning possibility that the investigation would need to examine. Or you're lying, Kennedy said flatly. Bondi's head snapped back toward him. Excuse me? You're either lying about knowing about the money, or someone has complete control of your finances and you're incompetent. I'm trying to figure out which is worse for an attorney general. Bondi stood again. Senator, I resent that characterization. I resent that the chief law enforcement officer of the United States is sitting in front of this committee unable to explain a $2 billion connection to a dead pedophile. The room erupted. The chairman banged his gavel. Cameras pushed forward. Bondi remained standing. Kennedy remained seated. The chairman restored order after 40 seconds. He looked at Bondi. Attorney General, do you have anything to add? Bondi's voice was steady, but her hands were trembling. I commit to this committee that I will get to the bottom of these allegations. I will determine the source of any funds, the legitimacy of any transfers, and the accuracy of any documentation presented here today. and I will report my findings to this committee within 30 days. Kennedy spoke without looking up from his notes. And if you find that you illegally accepted $2 billion in Epstein money, will you resign? Bondi stared at him. If I find that any laws were broken, I will take appropriate action. That's not an answer. That's the only answer I can give today. Kennedy closed his briefcase. Then I look forward to your report in 30 days, though I suspect we'll know the truth long before then. The hearing continued for another 20 minutes. No other senator asked about the $2 billion. They didn't need to. Kennedy had said everything that needed to be said. Bondi left immediately after her testimony ended, refusing all media questions. By that evening, DOJ had released a statement confirming that Inspector General had been directed to review certain financial matters related to the Attorney General's office. By the next morning, 3 separate watchdog groups had filed ethics complaints. By the end of the week, Kennedy had received the complete financial records of the Epstein Memorial Fund from a source he refused to identify. Those records show 17 additional transfers to 17 different officials. Kennedy has not released those names yet, but he has scheduled another hearing for next month. And Bondi's 30-day deadline is approaching. The $2 billion is real. The transfer is documented, and the Attorney General's promise to investigate herself is the closest thing to a confession anyone is going to get. Subscribe now. Share everywhere. Because when someone receives $2 billion from Epstein's fund and can't explain why, everything they've done since becomes evidence. And Bondi has 30 days before the investigation she promised reveals what Kennedy already knows. We're watching the beginning of the end. And it started with one question about one transfer that she should have disclosed 2 years ago.